Thank you so much for the invitation to respond and to interact in regards to what is our heartbeat, the call of Jesus to the foreign world. As you've seen, I often tell people when you look at my curricula vitae, it tells you one thing about particularly me. I have not been able to keep one job very long. That one fell flat. Thank you, sir. Thank you. But we have had an extensive, broad-based ministry, much of which we never planned for, but God had set up and established for us. And so to be able to come back to our alma mater and to be able to be part of your missions emphasis this week is an honor and a delight. Debbie and I have spent most of our career in terms of missions in education. And I want to take a few minutes before we go into the Word. I want to take a few minutes to talk about that. The facts of the matter are this. Statistics are bearing out that within the next 10, no more than 15 years, more than half of the appointed missionaries, the Assemblies of God of the United States, will retire. Think about that. God still calls. And maybe someone sitting here today will hear that call, maybe has already heard that call. But as I talk about that, let me point out another statistic that is a reality. In the context of that retirement concept, I teach with two different seminaries. I teach in the English side with the Caribbean School of Theology, where I travel all across the Caribbean teaching in intensive courses. Debbie and I live in Malden, Mass., just on the North Shore, and we are stateside based because of the work that I do. I need two things. I need internet and I need an airport. And with those two things, I can do what I do. And so I travel into the Caribbean teaching in the English side of my work. And in the other side of my work, from Mexico to Argentina and the Caribbean that speak Spanish, I travel and teach. As I say, I work with two seminaries, Caribbean School of Theology and Latin America Theological Seminary, or Facultad, as it's known in Spanish. The reality of where I work is simply this. In the Caribbean School of Theology, within the past year and within the next 6 months, we will see over half of the professors retire. In the Spanish side, we are watching as we're all aging out and heading to retirement. Now, the challenge is this. Other ministries, and God forbid that I would ever disparage any of them, they are all critical and they are all important. There is none, not what I do, not what they do, that is more important than the other. We are all the glove. We are all a finger in that glove, making it all work, obviously. But here's something to think about. All ministries produce converts, those who come to Christ. Those new converts, those new believers, they need pastors. They need shepherds. They need leaders. If we're going to talk about leaders, then we have to talk about training. And if we're talking about training, we have to train those pastors who are going to take care of the fruit that comes out of evangelism. And the significance of educational ministry is paramount to that work. Because as pastors are trained, they are going back to care for the flock, the new believers, and those who are established believers. That requires that if we have educators, if we have pastors who are doing that, they need an education which requires educators. It's only a normal flow of thinking. There is a dearth of educators. Sad to say, and this is the reality, it sounds a little harsh, forgive me if I sound harsh, I do not mean to sound harsh. If I go into a church and I can show pictures of needy people, of hungry children, I can raise money like that. If I go in and say I'm an educator, far too often the response is, that's nice. It is important, and there's someone sitting in this room today, I believe, that God is speaking to about education. Now, the greatest challenge is this. In the world of bilingual work, we are getting fewer and fewer qualified educators. An English speaker cannot go in to do what I do through a translator. It just doesn't happen. We need bilingual people who will pursue their education. Neither Debbie nor I, when we graduated from Zion way back when, we never anticipated moving towards our master's. We didn't think about it. I never anticipated moving towards my doctorate. It was not in our plan. And yet the call of God and the work of God led us in that direction, which has allowed us to literally work all across the Western Hemisphere. I don't say that to impress you. I say that to challenge you. Is God calling you? Could God be speaking to you about the need for educators? It is a big need. It is a large need it's very niche. It's very niche in its impact. And it's very specific in who can do that. But I believe that God could even be speaking here today to one, two, or maybe more and saying, you know what? I want to do that. I believe that God would call me to do that. You see, as Dr. Quackenbush spoke of where we have worked, we've worked in Spain, we've worked in Costa Rica, we've worked in Jamaica, I work all across Latin America. Here's the point. Not that I've traveled all of that and done all those countries, no. The point is that God, in the end, called Debbie and me to education. It's a calling of education. It's not a calling of location. It's a calling of a ministry, a very specific ministry that can be done in any location. And so we have been able to find our calling in what we do and then go wherever he wants us to go. So I want to challenge your thinking on that this morning, that all ministries are valid. I would never diminish any. None is higher than the other. But one of the empty fields that is getting emptier and emptier is educators. They are needed. Would you pray, as you pray, that the Lord would send forth the workers and the laborers to the harvest, that he would raise up educators? That he would raise up bilingual educators? I'll take one moment to tell you what I do, how I do it, and then we'll go into the Word. What I will do is I will fly into a given country where we have set up for the 3-week time frame. In 3 weeks, when I work at the Spanish world, in 3 weeks we will do 9 credit hours of master's level education. Those students will sit in classrooms for 3 weeks, Monday to Friday, 30 hours each week. Straight lecturing, interaction, project, and so on. In those weeks. So I, as a professor in the seminary, I will fly in on a Saturday typically. I will begin working on Monday, and I will teach 6 hours Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The students have pre-work, post-work, and work even during the class time. And as they submit all of that, when they finish one class, they, of course, move into the next. When those 3 weeks are done, they have 11 months to finish their term papers, which require a 25-page effort on their part. And so they submit them, and once they do all of that, meet all the requirements, then they pick up their 9 credit hours. And so they can pick up a master's degree in 5 years because it's a cycle that runs in their countries. So I fly in and I lecture for that point of time. What do I teach? I teach things such as the Pentecostal history, where I take the students from right after the book of Acts to contemporary history. I cover 2,000 years in 30 hours. I speak fast. But imagine trying to do that if you're not bilingual. It'd be impossible. And I teach other classes, and the beauty of it is this. My students are national superintendents. They are national leadership. They are national missionaries who are going into other countries to work. They are Bible school directors. They are Bible school teachers. They are the leadership. We're talking about people that have been in ministry for 10, 15 years who are saying, I want to enhance my ministry ability. And the beauty of this is that as the classes that I teach, which are based primarily on the things of the Spirit and the work of the Spirit and the move of the Spirit into their lives, the beauty is things like this. You're familiar with this. You're in Northpoint, and your president, I know, is very familiar with what I'm going to see. He was an undergraduate when I was a senior, and his wife was actually in my class. But when we go into that class, we're asking God to show up. We're asking the Holy Spirit to show up, not just in academics, but in life. We have seen healings in the middle of the class, in the middle of a master's degree class. We have seen deliverance in the class, and I'm not speaking of deliverance of the pastors and all of that. Obviously, they're believers. But we're talking about incredible things that God is doing amidst the class. I was in Mexico back in July and teaching. I had about 25 students there. 3 students independently came to me. And this is not to impress you on what I do. It's to impress you on who God is and what is happening. 3 different students came to me independently on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they said to me, Denny, I want to leave the class. Well, that's not an exciting thing for a professor to hear, that somebody wants to cut your class. And so I said to them, well, why do you want to leave? Because God has spoken to me so clearly already in this class, and I have seen things in this class that I want to take home and I want to apply to the church and the ministry where I work. Education has its role. And education formed and founded in the work of the Spirit will change countries. And that's what education in missions can do. So I invite you to include that in your prayer life. God, could you be calling me to that? It's exciting to watch. It's exciting to participate. I do want to take us to the Word this morning. And I want to take us to what is probably my favorite mission story in Scripture. It's John chapter 11. You know the story. You're Bible school students. It's the story of Lazarus. And I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but you can read it later and kind of follow along with it. Or even as I'm speaking, you'll be able to follow as I reference what has transpired. But we find that in John 11, Jesus is nowhere near Bethany. He receives a message from Mary and Martha. And the message that comes is, the one that you love, Lazarus, is sick. Now, we know that when they send that message to Jesus, you recognize, of course, that he was not just sending information. It was not CNN or Fox or anybody else sending a news broadcast. It was a plaintive call. Jesus, he's sick. The implication would be, can you come? Will you come? We need you. It was a prayer. And so Jesus, in his conversation with the disciples and so on, they decide, we're going to go. And they get there. When they get there, Martha says to Jesus, she goes out and meets Jesus, and she says, Jesus, if you would have only come, Lazarus wouldn't be dead. But you didn't come. She was saying, you let me down. She was in pain. She was in agony. And Jesus looks at her and says, but Martha, I'm the resurrection and the life. And she says, yeah, I get it. I'm a good Jew. I'm a good Jewess. I know that the resurrection is coming. Let's pause for a minute, and there's a lesson in there. The lesson is real simple. The simple part of it is this. When she says, Jesus, if you had come, she had faith for yesterday. When he said, I'm the resurrection and the life, she had faith for tomorrow. But Jesus wanted her to live that faith now. He wanted to live in the now with a confidence and trust that he does all things well. Mary comes out, and she basically says the same thing. And they try to put him into the box of, you're always healing and you're always doing these things, and if you'd come, and they're trying to get him to do what he always did, but he didn't do what he always does. He did what he was going to do instead of what they wanted him to do. And so in the midst of that conversation, we find that they were struggling. We find that they were in pain. Their brother had passed away. Now keep in mind, Jewish culture is what? Jewish culture is that a woman only has identity in her father, in her brother, in her uncle, in her husband. Lazarus was their identity in the culture. When he died, they lost their identity. When he died, they lost their family member. There's a lot of challenge going on in the undercurrent of this story. And so Jesus looks at them, and they're on their way, and they arrive at the tomb. Now, when they arrive at the tomb, think about who was there with me just for a minute. You have Mary and Martha, as I've already identified, who are in great pain and great agony for many reasons. You have, who else is there? Well, we know that the Jewish tradition would have professional mourners. They're paid to cry. They're paid to weep. They're paid to show respect to the deceased. The louder and the longer they wail, and if you've ever heard that Middle Eastern cry, you know it just pierces your very being. So there they are, crying and wailing and showing respect to the deceased. But who else is there? You look and you look around and you see that there were some there with a sharp pencil, because they are there to trap him. They know he's going to say something or do something that they're going to be able to use to eliminate him. They're in that crowd. Who else is in that crowd? Well, when we lived in Jamaica, it was always fascinating to see how quickly a crowd could accumulate itself when something happened. And half the people that were in that crowd, whenever was going on, were looking at each other saying, what's going on? And that's who was in the crowd as well. Those who were saying, there's a crowd here because crowds attract crowds. What's going on, huh? What happened? And then you have the other group that's there that says, I wonder what rabbit he's going to pull out of the hat. Because he's a miracle worker, and we want to see the miracle. We want to see what he's going to do. So you have this whole cacophony of thoughts and ideas and desires and goals all surrounded around Jesus in front of this tomb. Now the tomb, oh, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it. You know that Lazarus is dead. Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure that we make that clear. Oh, I said it was also missions, didn't I? Well, maybe we can tie it together. You can tell me later. They're in front of the tomb. The stone is there. Now, the way I had the opportunity many years ago to go to Israel, and I saw what is traditionally the grave of Lazarus. And the rock that was in front is huge. And the way it works is it's hewed like a giant wheel, and it's rolled in a trench, and then it drops into a deeper hole. And that's how they seal it off. The stone is mammoth in size and weight. Lazarus is dead. He's on the other side of that stone. And Jesus has the audacity to say, excuse me, could you move the stone? Now, did he need them to move that stone? I mean, you realize he could have said, off to the sea you go, mountains be removed, cast into the sea kind of thing. He could have said pebbles. He could have done anything. But he looked at them and said, move the stone. He was connecting his divinity, knowing that only what he could do, he would do if they would do what they can do. He was joining his divinity with their humanity that the glory of God might be expressed and seen. So he's standing there and he says, could you move the stone? Now think about this. What was he really asking them? It had more to do with than just the stone. The stone was physically impossible for one person to move. The stone physically was beyond their capacity. And somebody, I don't know who, I don't know how. The Bible doesn't tell us. But we know that somebody, maybe she just decided that, you like that? Maybe she just decided to go up and give her best effort. What we do know is that there was more than one, it had to be, and we know that they came together collectively, and they brought themselves collectively together, and they were going to move the stone. So they first had to overcome the physical ability to move the stone. But what else did they have to deal with? Well, when they said, Jesus, 4 days, he stinks, they weren't kidding. Middle East, high humidity, gone 4 days, body decomposing, he stinks. So he was challenging them to override their natural senses. Their natural senses, my eyes don't want to look at that. My nose certainly doesn't want to smell that. I don't want to touch that. It's disgusting, as our granddaughter would say. And he says, well, you move the stone, so they have to rise above not just their physical ability, they have to rise above their natural senses. But more profound than any of it was this. What's the relationship of a Jew to a dead body in those days? You couldn't touch it. You couldn't go near it. Because if you did, you risked, by doing so, you were cutting yourself off from the community. You would not be accepted into the community for a period of time. You were an outcast. He was challenging their religious beliefs. Will you rise above the physical ability? Will you rise above the natural senses? Will you rise above your spiritual, your religious life? Now, I did mention he's dead, right? Yeah, I did. Okay. How does the Bible describe a person who is outside of the community of faith? They are dead in their sins. You're bright people. You've already made the connection. As Jesus was challenging them in that physical moment to overcome those three things, Jesus, I believe, is calling you and me to be stone movers. The stone, what is it? The stone is the impediment. Whatever it is between that unbeliever, that lost person, that dead without Christ person, whatever is the impediment that is preventing them from hearing and responding to the gospel and the call of Jesus to come to life, we have the privilege and the responsibility of nudging that stone or that rock. We become the stone movers in their lives. We invest in them. And we have the same reactions. I can't do it. I don't know enough. I can't do it. I'm just a nobody from nowhere. I can't do it. I don't even like that person. Do you know what that person did to me? That one is living on the streets for how long? They stink. That one is so offensive and so arrogant. All of those things work against us to prevent us from saying, Jesus, I'll nudge the stone. I'll nudge the stone. As you and I become stone movers, I want to leave us with 3 observations concerning stone moving. To be an authentic stone mover, first, we would go to Psalms 2, the second psalm. In the second psalm, God is speaking, and God speaking through the psalmist says this, ask of me, and I will give you the nations. Stone movers are people of prayer. Stone movers are people who are saying, God, if you will work in this circumstance, if you will work in this situation, we become people of prayer. Let me tell you a story. My wife is an incredible woman of prayer. If you came into our home, you would find on a wall is this probably 2x2 picture, and it only has one word on it: pray. And she has all around it, on it and all around it, all kinds of prayer responses and prayer needs. And she prays for them constantly. Well, when we were pastoring in Western Pennsylvania, one day Debbie had been leading a prayer service every Tuesday with the ladies, and one of the elderly ladies of the church came in, all frantic and frustrated, and was, you got to pray for my sister. Well, what's going on? Well, my sister, I had to call the police because I've been trying to contact her for 2 weeks and she didn't respond, and that's not normal for her. And when I called the police, they did a well check, and she's an alcoholic, and her husband suffers from Alzheimer's disease. And when the cops showed up, she was passed out on the floor and he was totally disoriented. You got to pray. Well, that was in October. And Debbie was praying October, November, December, January. And in February, we were going to a conference in Florida. That's godly. To leave Western Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh area, if you're familiar with it, and go to Florida for the sun. That's godly, no doubt about it. So we went, we arrived, we got there. And we had time before the conference, and we went out for a walk. And when we went out for a walk, we were in Fort Lauderdale. And if you've been to Fort Lauderdale, you know that there are a lot of waterways and a lot of bridges. Well, we grabbed some lunch and whatever, and then we realized that we had to get back to the hotel rather, so that we could get ready for the conference. But I'm standing there like I'm looking at the back of the auditorium here, and I can see the hotel, but I don't know how to get there. And I'm looking in front of me, and it's something about water, and I can't walk on it. I don't know how. So it's like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm not the typical male. I actually stop and ask for directions. And so I said to Debbie, I said, honey, wait here just a minute. I see somebody over there. I'm going to ask him how to get there to the hotel. So went over. I said, excuse me. I said, can you help me? I need to get to the hotel. Yeah, you do that. Oh, thanks so much. Easy. Start to walk away. And they said to me, so where are you from? It was obvious I wasn't from there. I was white as a ghost. And I said, well, I'm from Pittsburgh. Oh, okay. And I turned to walk away, and it was like the Spirit stopped me and said, no, you're not from Pittsburgh. You're from a small town outside of Pittsburgh. So I turned around, and I said to them, I said, listen, I'm from the Pittsburgh area, but I'm actually from a small town outside of Pittsburgh. Really? I have a sister who lives in a small town outside of Pittsburgh. And I looked at her, and I said, Zelda? It was the sister of the lady in the church that Debbie had spent months on her knees praying for. Here's the point. The point is, as we become people of prayer, many times God will even give us the privilege and the opportunity to be a part of answering that prayer. Now, lest you think I'm bragging on my wife, I am, but lest you think I'm bragging on my wife or even more bragging on me, the only thing that we can do is when we get to heaven and God says, what did you do for me? We look at them and say, well, we got lost in Fort Lauderdale. See, it had nothing to do with us. It had everything to do with God's grace and God's kindness to Zelda and to Joe to be able to share the faith and to recognize the supernatural touch of God in that moment. Stone movers are people of prayer. What else are stone movers? Stone movers are senders. Romans 10. As I was just speaking about education and training, I speak about those who need to come to Christ. How do they hear the gospel except to be preached? And how can it be preached unless they are sent? We become senders. As I directed the language school and had all the new missionaries that would come in that had just finished their itineration, raising their budget and all that, one of the things I always challenged them to was this. You have just asked a lot of people to give to you to get you on the field. What are you doing to either send others to the field or keep them on the field? Because you see, this giving thing and the sending thing is not just for those who are sending missionaries. It's for missionaries. It's for all of us. It's for believers. And so we become people of prayer. We become senders. And finally, we become goers. Acts chapter 1, verse 8. You're very familiar with it. And you shall receive power after the Holy Spirit comes upon you. And you shall be, not do, be, I don't have time to develop that thought, be witnesses. Where? Jerusalem. I would offer to you, and we've all heard many illustrations off of this, I offer you another one perhaps that you've not heard. As we speak about being witnesses in Jerusalem, it's to the people that we already know. So people we're already in contact with, family, friends, relatives, neighbors. People already know. You should be witnesses to me in Jerusalem and in Judea. Judea are the people you don't know today, but you're going to know tomorrow. And you have the privilege of I have the privilege of being a witness to them. So we have Jerusalem, people we know. Judea, people we will get to know. I like the next one best. Samaria. They're the people you don't want to know. They're the people you have animosity toward. But we are equipped and empowered to be witnesses to them. And finally, to the uttermost parts of the earth. How can we be witnesses to the uttermost parts of the earth? By being senders and sending missionaries to all corners of the globe. You see, this stone moving thing is an amazing, amazing opportunity for us. Can we rise above our own prejudices, our own inabilities, our own lack of strength? Can we come together as the people of God and say, we will pray, we will send, and we will go? And that's missions.